Good. Good morning, everyone. I already feel very comfortable here because the first thing that I heard when I walked in is that they have the Svarim of the Chida, so I feel right at home. And we know the Chida was a great traveler. He traveled throughout the world. He traveled throughout the known Jewish world to over 150 cities in his first trip, and then another time 150 cities, but he never made it to South Africa. But that's because there was no real Jewish community here in South Africa in the 18th century. But if there would have been a Jewish community, you could be sure the Chida would have visited. So this is a kollel. This is a morning kollel. A shul, a community. Okay, so I want to share with you some ideas that I found to be personally beneficial to be able to take advantage of learning opportunities and perhaps some eitzos in Avodas Hashem in general. You know, there's a pasuk in the beginning of Lech Lecha. It says that Avram Avinu, Vayelech Avram Artsa Canaan. Avram Avinu went out to the land of Canaan. Vayavoyu Artsa Canaan, and he came to Canaan, which is a very unusual pasuk. It says Avram Avinu went out to go to the land of Canaan, and he came to the land of Canaan. Just say, the man went to Canaan. What's this long, drawn-out form of he went to go out to the land of Canaan, and he came to the land of Canaan? By the way, at the end of Parshas Noach, when it talks about Terach, it says, Terach vayetzu l'aleches artsa Canaan, vayavayu ad Charan. He left to leave to Canaan, and he came to Charan, and he vayeshu sham, he stayed there. So he left to go to Canaan, but when he got to Charan, he stopped there, and he never ended up going to Canaan. So the Chafetz Chaim says that we need to take notice of the difference between Avram and Terach. Avraham set out to go to Canaan, and he went to Canaan. Terach set out to go to Canaan, and he got distracted, and he stopped in Charan. Says the Chafetz Chaim, to be successful in learning, or in all areas of Avodas Hashem, you need to execute what you set out to do. But we live in the generation where the king of distraction. We set out to do A, but then the phone buzzes and we do B. We set out to do one thing and we get distracted because we see something else and we do that. And how often do we never really execute what we set out to do because of some distraction that just came up, that on a whim, we just allowed ourselves to get involved in that other thing. And the Chafetz Chaim would point out that the derech of Avraham is that when you make up in your mind to do something, do not rest on your laurels until you get that thing accomplished. Don't say, I have another idea now, so now I'm going to do that. Then you're just, you're haywire. You're blowing in the wind. The difference between Avraham and Terach is when Avraham decides to do something, he doesn't let anything get in his way until he carries that out. Terach, he decides to do something, he stops off, and then he gets distracted. And that's one interesting idea to think about. Here's another idea. The Gemara Masechta Sukkah tells us about Hillel. You heard of Hillel? The great Tana Hillel. Hillel would go to the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, and he would make the following statement: Im ani kan, hakol kan. If I'm here, everyone is here. Talk about a presumptive statement. If I'm here, everyone is here. And if I'm not here, nobody's here. What exactly is the meaning of Hillel's statement? You ever see there's some people, so they go on a trip, and like halfway through the trip they're thinking about what's for dinner, and then during dinner they're thinking about when's Marav, and during Marav they're thinking about when's Marav going to be over. And when they go to sleep at night, now they're never living in the moment. They're always living in what the next thing is. Pal, relax. We're on the trip now. You worry about dinner when dinner comes. You can't even enjoy the trip now because your mind is always about on the next thing, on the next thing, on the next thing. Now, it's good to foresee the future. But many people, their mind is never living in the task at hand. They're always living half in what they're doing, or 1/4 in what they're doing, 3/4 in the next thing. In order to have a significant act of Avodas Hashem, you need to be present. It sounds like a new vogue topic. It sounds like a modern concept. But in order for somebody to have a tefillah where the tefillah influences you, in order for somebody to have a learning where the learning influences you, you need to be in the present. You know, sometimes, let's say when Chodesh Elul comes, President Chodesh Elul, when's Slicha starting? Then Slicha start. When's Rosh Hashanah? On Rosh Hashanah, you're thinking about, what am I going to eat by the Sudas HaMafsekes on Yom Kippur? Erev Yom Kippur, what is the Chazan going to sing for Ne'ilah? What's going to be the first day of Sukkot? On the first day of Sukkot, he's worried about Simchas Torah. So he never sat in the Sukkah, because while he was in the Sukkah, he's thinking about Hoshana Rabbah. Pal, you worry about Hoshana Rabbah when it comes. Right now you're in the sukkah, sit in the Ananei HaKavod, think about where you are and be present in what you are doing. Hillel would say, Im ani is the essential I. Im ani kan, if I'm here, present in what I'm doing, hakol kan, then this is an all-encompassing act of service of God. But v'im ein ani kan, but if I'm not present, because my mind is elsewhere, then it doesn't really have that much power and doesn't have that much value. So it's worthwhile not to be jumpy and to try to immerse yourself in the situation you're in at the time. We had a siyum Matzoi Shabbos on Masechta Ksubais. You're there? Yeah, it was nice, right? Nice siyum. You know there's a remez to the siyum on Masechta Ksubas in the end of this week's parsha? You know what the last word of Parshas Vayera was? Ma'acha. Ma'acha. By the way, the last word of Vayera is the last word we read on Rosh Hashanah laning. V'yazdachas v'yasmacha. Ma'acha stands for Melech al Kol Haaretz. So we make sure to end off on Rosh Hashanah Ma'acha. But this week it stood for Hadrin Alach Maseches Ksubais. Yeah, so I figured I have to come to South Africa. It says in the Parsha, Hadrin Alach Maseches Ksubais. We're learning now Masechta Nedarim. And I'm going to make a plug for Daf HaShavua. If you never tried Daf HaShavua, it's really a very worthwhile type of limud because it allows you to review. You have a week to learn the blat and you could review it many times. Masechta Nedarim, also Masechta Yevamos, begins in a very unusual way. Let's talk about Yevamos. Yevamos is like one of the most difficult Masechtas in Shas. There's an idea, Erev and Nida, Yevamos are three of the most difficult Masechtas in Shas. There's unbelievable lamdos in Yevamos. You have Nefila, you have Aseidoy Chaloi Sasei, you have Tsaras Erva, you have Ne'esra. I mean, you have the most difficult sugyas in Shas in Masechta Yevamos. How does the Masechta begin? The Masechta begins, what?
15 arayos.
Yeah, the 15 arayos, right? The Mishnah says, Bitay, Ubas Bitay, Ubas Benoy, 15 arayos. And the Gemara discusses, why does it first say Bitay, and then Bas Bitay, and Achas Ishtay? We have a whole lengthy discussion of the order of the 15 arayos. You cannot have a more tedious, nitty-gritty, detailed discussion of a subject matter that has absolutely no relevance to the main theme of Yevamos than the way Masechta Yevamos starts. It starts by the order of the Mishnah. By the way, Nedarim, it's the same thing. We have unbelievable sugyas in Nedarim. You have Yadois Nedarim, you have Hatfasa, you have real meaty sugyas. And how does the Gemara start? The Gemara starts, why does it first say Yadois and then Kinuyim, the Seder, the order? So, it's an odd way to begin. I learned for many years in a yeshiva in America called Yeshiva Chafetz Chaim. The founder of the yeshiva was Reb David Leibowitz, who many consider the closest Talmud of the Alter of Slabodka. It's a real Slabodka style yeshiva. And he explained this as follows. He said, you ever hear the concept Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah? Derech Eretz Kadma Torah means that etiquette or seder, organization, comes even before learning. So you'd explain, we see this from the order of how Yevamis and Nadarim was compiled. Before even you get into the real meaty lamdus of a sugya, first we have to understand the order. And once we understand the seder, then we could get involved in the lamdus of the Masechta. In other words, before you could be successful in learning, you got to be a little organized. If you're flying and you're a mess and you're scattered, it's going to be very hard to dig in and to really delve into learning. So like step one in learning is seder. So seder kad malata. I always think, is there any Yom Tif that we have before the Torah was given? Is there any Yom Tif given to the Jewish people before we had the Torah? Pesach, right? Pesach is the one Yom Tif that God gave us before the Torah was given. We celebrated Pesach before He even gave us the Torah. Do you ever think there's one Yom Tif that before we do anything, we recite order of operations? We recite the Seder, Kadesh, Orchatz, Karpas. Yeah, we don't do that on Shavuos. We don't do that on Sukkot. We don't say, Ushpizin, Kiddush, Shechianu, Yeshiva. Why do we recite? Because Pesach is Kadma LaTorah. So we have to recite the Seder, because Derech Eretz, Seder is Kadma LaTorah. I want to share with you a very interesting conversation that one of the most beautiful Nevi'im, this is a Navi that many are not familiar with, one of the last of the Nevi'im, Chagai, that Chagai had with the Jewish people when the Jewish people returned in the times of the Second Temple. When they returned in the times of the Second Temple, they were expecting that the Shekhinah that would be present in the Second Temple would be on par with what was present in the times of the First Temple. And they are very saddened to discover that when they looked at the Second Temple, the Levium cried because it paled in comparison to the Shekhinah of the first Beis HaMikdash. It was missing many things. They didn't have an Aron, they didn't have an Eish from Shamayim, they didn't have the Urim B'Tumim, they didn't have the Shekhinah, and they didn't have Ruach HaKodesh. And they couldn't understand. They're doing the same avodah. They're doing the same service. They seem to have been just as committed. What was lacking? And the Navi Chagai was trying to explain to them why they were not eligible yet for like a real Beis HaMikdash. So the Navi Chagai posed the following question to them. The question he posed to them was, what's the halacha if basar tameh, kudshim that became tameh, touched regular basar? Would the tameh basar create impurity and transfer impurity to the regular basar? In other words, if you have kudshim that's tameh and it touches other meat, would it contaminate the other meat? What's the halacha? Yes. Yes. Then Chagai asked, what if you have actual kudshim and the kudshim touched regular meat? Would the kedusha of the kudshim transfer to the regular meat? And the answer is no. Tumah transfers through touching. Kedusha doesn't transfer through touching. So Chagai asked, why? Why does Tumah transfer through Negiah and Kedusha not transfer through Negiah? And Chagai said, the answer is you. You're the answer. Say, hey prophet, what are you talking about? And Chagai explains, the Malbim taught them as follows. You ever notice, you could be learning in the Beis Medrash, you could have a day, like Yom Kippur, you're the whole day in the shul, and if you walk out one day into like the center of the city, and you're surrounded by like these billboards, you walk out and you feel like it impure, like you need to take a shower or something, you feel like it contaminated you. Just leaving the four walls of the Beis Medrash, even though you weren't trying to be involved in it, and you weren't trying to look, and you were trying to shield yourself. but just like a casual exposure to, so to speak, the impurity of the street, you feel it has an impact on you. Even though you didn't even want to look at it. And yet many people find that they could come to a shachris, and they could come to a mincha, or come to a shir, and they walk out, and it didn't have an impact on them. And you wonder, why is it that a casual pass-through a bad place that I wasn't even trying to be influenced by, influenced me, and when I walk into a shul on a regular mincha, and I didn't really put in that much effort to daven properly, it didn't elevate me. And the answer is, there's a very big difference between tumah and kedusha. We are physical beings. And because we're physical beings, tumah easily connects with us. And even if we're not trying, and even if it's not our intention, it could have an impact on us because of the nature of being a basar v'adam. However, kedusha is very different. In order for a person to be influenced by kedusha, it cannot happen if you just get involved casually. If you just daven a mincha and basically like say the words, you come in and you come out, it's not really going to elevate you. If you just learn and you give it like a half-hearted effort, it's not really going to make such a big impact. Because for kedusha to have an effect on you, it needs to get into your heart. It doesn't need to touch your finger. It doesn't need to touch your nose. It has to get into your soul. And the only way for kedusha to get into your soul is if you immerse in it with all your heart. So if you just daven a mincha and you're, so to speak, mostly there, but you're also 10% in the game reserve, 10% on what you're getting for lunch, 10% in the office, the kedusha that you're involved in will not really have a major elevation. In order for learning Torah and Tefillah and Avodas Hashem to elevate you, it needs to be b'chal levavecha, with all your heart. You need to immerse yourself in it. And that's a very big challenge. Who could say that they come to a regular mincha and they're giving it every fiber of their being? Who could say that when they're sitting in front of a sefer? That's why I say, I could say this, Ilan, right? Ilan said I could say. I'm going to give you good advice, life advice, okay? Life advice is like this. If you come to a shul, you cannot bring a phone into a shul. Don't tell me it's on vibrate. It's on vibrate. That means you're giving your learning or your tefillah 60% of your attention. The other, and I'm being generous. Let me say it straight. If your phone is on you and it's on vibrate, you're giving your learning and your tefillah 17% of your attention. The other 83% is invested in your email, your WhatsApp, your notification, the news, and all the other things that you're tethered to. If you want to have a fighting shot to have your learning and davening really affect you, you have to leave a phone outside of the Beis HaMedrash. Otherwise, what in the world are you doing? Can't be in a shul. I don't mean can't be on. I don't mean it can't be on vibrate. And I don't even mean it should be off. I mean it can't be on you. How in the world are you supposed to immerse yourself in your davening and learning if you have something that your entire being is tethered to? So, this is a very important aspect of Avodas Hashem, that for the spiritual world to have an impact on a soul, it has to be an immersive experience. And it's not a big deal. You'll actually feel very good about it. So if you have a 15-minute mincha, you put the phone outside in a locker in your car, and you come and you say, Rebbeinu Shem, for these 15 minutes, I don't know that I could give you my mind the whole time, because the mind is, it wanders, but at least I'm making an effort to dedicate my attention and my heart and my emotion to you. If you could learn for 10 minutes, make it 10 full minutes with everything you got. Finish learning, you go back to the rest of your life. But that's a very important understanding of here it is, you could be with minimal exposure to impurity, it affects you. But with minimal exposure to Kedusha, it does not really have its desired effect. So these are some ideas that I personally find helpful. Number one, be decisive. You make up your mind to do something, execute it. Don't get distracted. Don't see something else. The Chavetz Chaim would say that when he decided to do something, he would not put his attention to anything else until he carried out that task. Number two, you want to be present. You want to be fully present. You don't want to be in tomorrow. You don't want to be in yesterday. You don't want to be in what I have to do in 5 minutes from now. Whatever you're doing, be focused and present in what you're doing. You want to be organized. If you're organized, you have more clarity of thought to be focused on what you need to do. And then, finally, whatever areas of Avodas Hashem you're involved in, you want to give it all your heart, all your emotion, all your soul, and then Be'ezus Hashem, our learning, our davening, our chesed will bring us tremendous aliyah. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and I wish you all bracha v'atzlacha. Thank you. Brought to you.